This is what Alex Hormozi doesn't tell you about leadership when you're overwhelmed. His advice is to identify the emotion, understand the situation, and solve the problem. And it works, but it is incomplete. If you, as a leader, only solve your way out of emotions, you'll never learn to understand them. And that will ruin your relationships at work and at home. I've spent years learning this, practicing it, coaching leaders through it, and watching them transform their teams and their families because of it. So here's what's missing. Let me be clear. Hormozi's framework is solid. You identify the emotion you're feeling, you understand the situation, and find the best path forward. It's really practical, it's super actionable, and for a lot of overwhelmed leaders, it just works. But here's what it misses. It treats emotions like problems to be solved instead of signals to be understood. When we're overwhelmed, Hormozi's advice pushes us to quickly name the emotion, which is validating, and then immediately jump to fixing the situation that caused it. The assumption is fix the situation and the emotion goes away. And many times that works. If you're stressed about a deadline, you reorganize your schedule and stress will decrease. But here's the problem. If the only tool we have for dealing with emotions is solving the situation around them, we never actually learn to sit with our emotions. We never learn to understand what they're telling us beyond just fix this thing. Here's what I mean. The best leaders don't just identify emotions, they label them precisely, both in themselves and in others. And then they talk about those emotions without getting defensive or reactive. They don't rush past them to solve the problem. They sit with them long enough to understand what's really going on. And notice what that requires. We must label the emotion, then talk about it. Not just solve it, but to truly try to understand it. Because here's the truth. Emotions are not just obstacles. They're information. They're signals about what we value, what we fear, and what we need. And when we only solve our way out of emotions, we miss all of that data. Brené Brown writes in Dare to Lead, emotional literacy, in my opinion, is as critical as having language. When we can't name and articulate what's happening to us emotionally, we cannot move through it. Alex Hormozi gets us halfway there. He does name the emotion, but then he skips the step of actually understanding it. We go straight from I'm anxious to here's how I'm going to fix it. And that's where we as leaders get stuck, myself included, because we build a habit of escape. So we train ourselves to see emotion as problems that need solving, not as experiences that need to be understood. So when we're overwhelmed, we don't sit with it. We don't ask, what is this anxiety really about? What am I afraid of? What does this tell me about what I care about? We just solve it. And then we move on. And we never actually grow in our capacity to handle emotions. But here's the bigger issue. This doesn't just hurt us, it ruins our relationships. Which leads me to my second point. Why does this matter, both at work and at home? You see, the leader you are at work is the leader you are at home. And if you only know how to solve emotions instead of understand them, you will struggle to build deep relationships, whether that's with your team or with your family. At work, when someone on your team is frustrated, if they're anxious or discouraged, and you immediately jump to fixing the situation without seeking to understand the emotion, you miss the chance to build trust. When we only problem solve, we treat emotions as noise. But emotions are signals, and when our people feel like their emotions are being dismissed or rushed past, they stop sharing them. They stop trusting us with what's really going on. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell puts it really simply. Mature leaders listen, learn, and then lead. They listen to their people's stories and they pay attention to their emotions. From those things, they learn about their people. They discover what is valuable to them, and then they lead based upon what they've learned. Paying attention to emotions isn't soft leadership. It's strategic, because that's where the real information is. And this is where it really gets personal. If we only solve emotions at work, we are going to bring the same habit home. And at home, that habit is going to be really devastating. You see, your spouse isn't looking for you to fix their emotions. They're looking for you to understand them. Your kids don't need you to solve every problem. They need you to sit with them in what they're feeling. Read any book on relationships or marriage or parenting, and you're going to hear this over and over again. You need to understand, not solve. Listen, I love to just solve the problem and not really try to understand. So what's scary for me and for you is we can win at work, in business, but we can lose at home because we never learned how to do anything with emotions except solve them. One of my favorite leadership authors, Dr. Stephen Covey, he talks about always beginning with the end in mind. So thinking about that, at the end of your life, what matters isn't how many problems you solved, it's the depth of your relationships. And those deeper relationships, they require us to get good at emotions, not just naming them, not just solving them, but understanding them, sitting with them, empathizing with them. Because emotions are not problems to be fixed in life. They're part of being human. They're part of connecting. They're part of growing. Hormozi's advice is great for tactical problem solving, but if that's the only tool you have, you will limit your leadership and your relationships. If you want to keep going on this topic, I've got an entire playlist called Master Yourself Before Leading Others that breaks down self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the inner work that actually makes you effective. It's not just theory, they're real tools. So click it, watch it, and I'll see you guys over there in one of those videos.